friends. This is the second session for the Book of Certitude. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, I suggest to listen to the recorded session on the introduction to the Kitáb-i-Íqán. I would like to start with some passages that shows why this book is important to read. It is crucial to understand the position of the Book of Certitude, and understanding that position helps to correlate it to the issues that are current in the world. In fact, this book by many scholars, non-Baha'is especially, has been considered to be one of the most important works to undermine fundamentalism, fanaticism, and extremism. We will see why the people have come to that conclusion. But I would like to, if you take a note, there are many references in the Baha'i writings that talks about the people pay attention to the Kitáb-i-Íqán or the Book of Certitude. One is a talk which very much has influenced my thought, is by Abdul Baha Abbas in 1912, New York City, describes the content of the Kitáb-i-Íqán as one of the most important sources to understand the gospel and every other holy scriptures. That is to say, this book will help to understand Old, New Testament, Quran, and for that matter, any other allegorical books that exist in religious systems. Shoghi Effendi, in his own handwritten letter dated June 9, 1932, considers this book the most fundamental book on the Baha'i revelation. That is to say, if somebody might be Baha'i for 50 years, 60 years, 70 years, that cannot be a deciding factor that that person really appreciates or understands the Baha'i writings. It is crucial to read this book over and over. In another letter, which is dated December 2nd, 1936, considers this book to be the most important work next to Kitáb-i-Íqán. There is another letter that is, you can find it in the Light of Divine Guidance, that he considers this book to be related to the understanding of the spiritual significance of the cause of God. The last letter that caught my attention that I would like to read it is by Shoghi Effendi. It is a letter dated June 9, 1932, coded in a compilation called Deepening by the Universal House of Justice. If you have that compilation, it is number 106. It says, he fully approves the idea of holding study classes for deeper understanding of the friends from the teachings of the cause and becoming more steadfast. As you can see, he considers then the books such as Kitáb-i-Íqán, Some Answered Questions, Dawn Breakers, should be among the works that every single Baha'i should master. We know when the book was revealed, it was revealed in 2 days and 2 nights, as you know. Originally, Bahá'u'lláh was pasting back and forth, and then the transcriber was Abdul Baha Abbas, who was 18 years of age, and later on, Bahá'u'lláh took that copy and made some side notes. That side notes then became a part of Kitáb-i-Íqán. This work, as you know, has 2 parts. One part which starts from paragraph 1 to 101, and the second part starts from 102 to 290. It is very interesting how Bahá'u'lláh organizes this book. Bahá'u'lláh seems to deal with the questions that are mainly answered in the second part. That is to say, if you look at the question of the recipient, the great uncle, you see that he had 4 different categories of questions, and all of them had to do with how Bob qualifies to be the promised one, and why should we accept him as a new manifestation. It is interesting that most of the questions were very ordinary questions that every Muslim at the time and even today is dealing with. The issues such as seal of the prophet, the issues such as symbolic verses, the issues such as resurrections, the issues concerning power and sovereignty, that why Bob was so utterly weak, why he got murdered, why all these traditions by Muhammad and other imams was put aside. It is very, very noteworthy, my dear friends, that Baha'u'lláh seems in the first 101 paragraph intentionally put those questions aside and starts to give some fundamentals. Please pay attention, this is very important point. That is to say, when you teach the cause of God, one of the key elements that this book teaches us is the fact that you start with the fundamental verities that governs all the religions and not only your religion. This is very significant. That is to say, Baha'u'lláh in the first part, he tries to show the recipient, the questioner, how the previous revelations have evolved, what type of challenges the people at the time had, and then, and only then, he prepares the ways for going into the questions that are specific to the questioners. I don't know whether that point gets across, and we can use it a lot. That is to say, as some of the evangelists, and of course Baha'is never do these things, but maybe some people like Habib Riazati, who is very anxious for the person to become Baha'i, they jump into the second part and talk about the new teachings, new understandings. Baha'u'lláh teaches us that don't rush, prepare the way, be friend to the seeker. Do not consider the seeker ignorant. Try to converse with him or with her as he is knowledgeable and invite him to consider your points. In the first part, you see Baha'u'llah's humility in presentation. Please pay attention. He is a manifestation of God, but he teaches us humility. Whenever he wants to code something, or if you are very firm into research, when he wants to reveal something, even from Quran, from the Old Testament, New Testament, he humbly says, this is what I recall. Mazmoon is there. It's not because Baha'u'lláh doesn't remember it. Baha'u'lláh doesn't want to quote exactly. I think he has a posture of humility when it comes to anybody who comes to his presence, whether friends or foes. That is another thing that the first part shows us. Now, tonight, I would like to go over a theme which is listed by Shoghi Effendi in God Passes By and by other researchers to be the main part of this book, and that is seeking, researching the quality of seeker. Before we do that, you know that the seeker doesn't mean non-Baha'i, because then you become greater, more learned, then you cut the cord that you have with Íqán. Each one of us is seeker. Each one of us want to understand more. None of us befittingly appreciate any text. No wonder Mirza Abul Fazail Gulpaigani is quoted to say that the more and more and more I read Íqán, I felt that I am reading the new book. That means we should not satisfy ourselves with the understanding that we take, because our understanding is proportional to the maturity that we have. You know, I do not want to go into the field of psychology. The people mature in different ways. You see people that are about 50 years old, they act like 15 years old. Some people emotionally are not really as their age suggests. Mentally doesn't suggest. This is why we should try to find the maturity that Íqán requires, or any other books. By maturity, I mean it is a developmental process. What you read today, when you read it 5 years from now, hopefully you understand it better. You know, Íqán doesn't change. The words are the same thing. The meanings are enshrined. But we, as a human beings, based on our outlook in life, outlook about ourselves, and outlook about world as a whole, our reading of these texts differs. Please pay attention that this is one reason that this book or any other book can survive the test of time. That is to say, from this book, Rumis will be created, Kants will be created, and all those great thinkers that you know, male or female, shall come about. Unfortunately or fortunately, because of the culture that we live in, most of the concordances to books, especially Íqán, has not been about the relevance of Íqán. It has been mostly about how to understand the previous scriptures. What are the new meanings of this book is a task that we have to unravel. But when you read the theme about seeker, you have to pay attention to 3 chapters or paragraphs. One is paragraph 1 and 2, and another set is 213 through 215. These paragraphs, which I humbly suggest that after this session, read it, and then you come up with your questions if you do not ask tonight, and ask yourself whether we, as a people who read this book, have those qualifications. Let me read paragraph 1 and 2 and see how deep are these paragraphs. Anybody else can offer to read? Anybody? There is a young man called Armand. Armand, would you like to read? Okay.
Sure. Do you want to share your screen or do you want me to pull it up? I'll need a minute.
Do whatever you like.
Okay.
Please pause after each paragraph that you read.
Okay, let me pull it up. So, part 1.
Yes?
Should I start with "This is the day in which the testimony"?
No, read in the name of our Lord, the exalted, the most high.
Got it. Okay. In the name of our Lord, the exalted, the most high.
Okay, very good. Let's start. What does that really mean? Who is that referring to? The original goes, بسم ربنا العلی الأعلی. Ali al-A'la, the most high, the exalted, the most high. Please pay attention. He is saying in the name of our Lord. Who is our Lord?
The Bab.
What is that?
The Bab.
The Bab. Beautiful. See, I know you know it. Now, why it is Bab? If there are some non-Baha'i, somebody says, what do you mean? You actually have committed the greatest sin in the world. You consider Bab to be the Lord. Please pay attention. In fact, in the terminology of the Baha'i writings, the manifestation of the age, because it's the mouthpiece of unknowable God, and this is the only way to recognize God. Therefore, whosoever wants to say, I believe in God, naturally has to believe in the supreme manifestation of the age. And when this book is written, the Bab is the Lord of the age. That is to say, he says, in the name of our Lord, the exalted Ali, the most high Allah. And it is very interesting that one of the title of the Bab is Rabb Allah, the most exalted Lord. Why the most exalted Lord? Because there are many, many lords. There are many, many manifestations. What do you mean? Well, philosopher is a manifestation. The scientist is a manifestation. But all of them are driven from the capital M manifestation, which is who is referring to the mouthpiece of God at the age which we live in. Makes sense? So then go ahead.
Sure. No man shall attain the shores of the ocean of true understanding, except he be detached from all that is in heaven and on earth.
Okay, very good, very good. Don't go fast, my friend. I'm a slow guy. This is a extremely important statement. Please pay attention to the qualifier. No man, you can, I know that you don't like this, but you can ask Baha'u'lláh, what do you mean? No man, please pay attention to his qualification. No man shall attain the shores of ocean of true understanding. True understanding? What is true understanding? See, he qualifies understanding. He doesn't say the people do not understand. The people do not have perception. He apparently considers something to be true understanding, except he be detached from all that is in heaven and on earth. What is he talking about here? Who is in heaven now? I thought we are all living on earth. Is he talking about some people living in maybe Jupiter or something? Anybody? What does heaven means? What does earth means? See, again, you have to ask question. But in short, what earth means, according to Bab in Persian Bayan, by earth means those potential that every human being, every created being has. By heaven means that which is acceptable in the realm of perfection. And please pay attention what does he say? He says you never can attain the true understanding unless you are detached from what is low or what is high. That is very difficult, dear friends. How can you do that? How can you train your mind to do not get attached? How you do that? Now he will explain later on, but please pay attention to the rest of it. Read it, please.
Sanctify your souls, O ye peoples of the world, that haply ye may attain that station which God hath destined for you, and enter thus the tabernacle which, according to the dispensations of providence, hath been raised in the firmament of the Bayan.
Beautiful, beautiful. Please pay attention. O ye peoples of the world, right? Already this tells you that the author is not talking to the uncle, is not talking to the Baha'is, is not talking to the believers. He is talking to every human being who wants to have true understanding, regardless of their potentiality, regardless of their station, how low or high it is. Look at it. He says, sanctify your soul. So the first and the foremost question in your mind from Baha'u'lláh has to be, what do you mean sanctify my soul? What is your soul, for God's sake? Do we have a spirit, soul, mind, emotion, action? Do we really have all these three? Why do you think Shoghi Effendi didn't like this terminology? I know that you are some lovers on this team that you tell your husband or wife, you are my soulmate. You only do this in February 14, but you know that this thing doesn't mean anything. And Shoghi Effendi actually, he says nobody is the soulmate of anybody else. But is there really by soul? What does he mean? Can you sanctify your soul, but still your mind not be sanctified? How about your emotion? For that purpose, I encourage you to read a tablet which is called Lawh Rais in Arabic, which Baha'u'lláh says, in fact, a spirit, soul, mind, body are all three different realms of one reality. So when he says sanctify your soul, naturally, if you are a psychologist, you know that it means also sanctify your mind, sanctify your emotion, sanctify your behavior. But sanctify from what? From true understanding. From anything which tries to make you attach or creates a barrier. But please pay attention. That happily, what does happily mean? Means happily or happily, maybe. You do all these, but perhaps you may attain to the station that God had destined for you. That shows me, when I read other tablets of Baha'u'lláh, that never get pride on the efforts that you make. My experience shows many people who have degrees, they forget that it is not degrees that defines them. Is what you learn from that degree. Muhammad, the manifestation before the Bab, in a chapter which is called Friday, Jum'ah, verse 6, he says, the example of those people who read books, but they do not abide by it, understand it, is like a donkey that carries books. Of course, none of us are donkey, but we should not do something that donkey gets mad, because when we actually use the books as a means that I know better, I am better, that is where we are a carrier, but we never understand it. This is why when he says perhaps, means do your best, but always remember, it is not only your efforts that makes it. It is also the confirmation of the world on high. If you are a non-Baha'i joining, always remember that it is not only you that make things happen, rather your connectivity to the rest of the world that actually makes things happen. You only do your best. And when you do it in a spirit of servitude and humility, then you actually attract the power of attraction. Now, he says, and then you have to come to the point that you understand what is in the firmament of Bayan. What does Bayan mean? Bayan means revelation of the Bab. Do you remember on the top, he referred to the station of the Bab? And here is Bayan. Do you see how these few lines have been written? Very a small font. And then he explains the essence of this word. This is written in the style of Persian Bayan. Why does he do that? Some researchers believe that he actually tries by revealing this word to fulfill the prophecy of the Bab. You know that Bab's most important work was Persian Bayan. Persian Bayan was not a complete work. When they asked Bab, who shall complete this work? And Bab, in a tablet, specifically says, the one whom God shall make manifest. And this is why this work in the writings of Shoghi Effendi and in the writings of Bahá'u'lláh and Abdul Baha is known as Mutammamul Bayan, means the book that completes that unfinished Persian Bayan. Do you see, ladies and gentlemen, that shows how connected Bahá'u'lláh and Bab are. This is why, in fact, although we consider it two different revelations, but it is actually one revelation with twin manifestation. This is why Bahá'u'lláh, in majority of his writings, he says, the Bab is none other than me, and I am none other than primal point. Do you recall that a statement that it says, Bab says, I have no other wish but to sacrifice myself in the path of the promised one? You see that after this book was revealed, when Baha'u'lláh took his pen and tried to write something on the side, in fact, what he wrote on the side of the book was, I have no other desire but to sacrifice my life in the path of the primal point. Do you see how close these two are? Okay, read it, the essence. Read it, please.
The essence of these words is this: they that tread the path of faith, they that thirst for the wine of certitude, must cleanse themselves of all that is earthly, their ears from idle talk, their minds from vain imaginings, their hearts from worldly affections, their eyes from that which perisheth.
Okay, let's see. I am a little bit confused. You guys have to help me. He says, those that tread the path of faith. What is faith? Original word is Iman. But he is not talking about whether you have come to believe in a faith. This is not a Baha'i faith. This is not a Christian faith. He uses the faith as a generic way of those who really want to be on the path to understand what is eternal in the past, eternal in the future. Please pay attention. When Baha'u'lláh in Aqdas, he says this is a changeless faith of God. Does he refer to those type of a faith, or he wants us to concentrate on one particular religion? And please pay attention. The word religion and the word faith has to be differentiated here. And also you have to pay attention here. Why Shoghi Effendi, in the world of Bahá'u'lláh, identifies Bahá'í not as a religion, not as organized religion, rather as Amr. Amr means revelation. Bahá'í revelation. So no matter how do you read it, it says those people who want to reach to the faith and thirst for the wine of certitude, Íqán. Those of you who drink from Íqán, I know some of you drink, but I don't know what are you drinking. That is none of my business. But he actually creates a space. Does faith and certitude interrelated? Can you have faith without certitude and make it? Can you have certitude without faith? Ask this question in the privacy of your chamber and do not say whether Habib has it or X has it or Y has it. Say, do I really have it? And then you continue, and then he says, must cleanse themselves of all that is earthly. What is earthly, for God's sake? What is earthly? You tell me one thing which is not earthly. Does it mean limited? Does it mean contingent? You tell me something that is not earthly. Tell me, I am going to the Baha'i meeting. Is that an earthly thing or not? You go to a Baha'i meeting. Meeting is an earthly phenomena. Gathering is an earthly phenomena. So what does it mean? Please pay attention. Does it mean be in the world but not of the world? Bahá'u'lláh Lohe Dunya. It does not really mean material things, is it? Just answer it on your own. I'm here to just show you how ignorant I am and how many questions I have in my mind. Is it really material things or earthly? Well, if that's the case, why are you crying because of Corona if you do not have food on the table? If your house goes on foreclosure, you just have to say, well, I lost the earthly thing. But is it really earthly? Is attachment to things? Or attachment and detachment is a processes? Or he's talking about actually the physical things? You see that he immediately answers that. Read it, please. Their ears.
They should put their trust in God and hold.
No, that's it. No. Their ears from idle talk. Their minds from vain imagining. You are ahead of me.
Yes, sentence.
Remember, idle talk. What is idle talk? You say to someone, I love you. Is that idle talk really? Couldn't any talk be idle? How do you know something is idle or not? See, you have to ask this thing from Bahá'u'lláh. Just don't read it and don't say, yes, Bahá'u'lláh, you are right. He doesn't mean for you and I to affirm whether he is right or wrong. He just is a mouthpiece of God. Idle talk. When you and I meet each other for dinner, we talk 2 hours. and then we get out of the meeting, both of us are actually tired of these talks. What is idle talk? If I read Quran or Aqdas, that is idle talk? God forbid. Those are the holy talks, huh? What is idle talk? You see that Bahá'u'lláh uses the second part from paragraph 213 to 215 to show us what does idle talk really mean. But in short, idle talk means those talks that does not have any impact on our nobility and the goal of the revelation, which is unity of humankind. He's actually trying to show us to watch our words, or in Loha Maqsood, when he says one word is positive, another word, talk, is negative, and both of them influence us. When somebody just brags, is idle talk. When somebody just wants to impress you, that is idle talk, and so on. Their minds from vain imagining. Oh my God, what is vain imagining? How many of you do not have vain imagining? You imagine for sure. See, he doesn't say don't imagine, because then Albert Einstein comes and say, hey, my friend, power of imagination is more important than the power of thinking. What are you talking about? So what is vain imagining? Ask yourself. I'm not going to answer all of this because otherwise we are going to be here until tomorrow evening. But ask yourself, what is vain imaginings? Is the imagination which doesn't have any roots in reality? What type of reality? Objective reality or a subjective reality? The reality that I see or the reality that I assume? Are all the imaginations are vain? The science is based on the power of imagination. This is why you call it pseudoscience sometimes. You sometimes call it science fiction. So pay attention to what is really is meant when he talks about minds from vain imaginings. Does it mean, if psychologist was here, does it mean mental distortion? Does it mean to have either or mentality? Does it mean that you always talk and you say, that is the way it is, because my mind says so? And then look at the next one. Their hearts from both the affections. Can you ask yourself, where is your heart? Where is your mind? Does really your heart have an affection, or your mind has an affection? When you tell somebody, I love you, your mind talks or your heart talks? If you say my heart talks, only after honeymoon you go to the divorce case. So, but there is, what is heart? Is it worldly affection? Please pay attention, because heart is a symbol of affection, but the affection which should not be limited. This is why it's called worldly. Their eyes from that which perisheth. What does that mean, for God's sake? Should we read some of the words that are against the Baha'i Faith written? No, no, no. Those are what? We should not look at it. Is that really what it means? Or Perished means, as he explains, anything which is not sustainable, anything which is not real, anything which is not useful, and most importantly, as Baha'u'lláh himself says, anything which does not serve your nobility and does not guarantee the well-being of human race. So think about it. Their eyes, they should put their trust in God. Very good. Holding fast unto him, follow in his way. Then will they be made worthy. Please pay attention. Even if you do that, again, you need the affirmation of that great energy, that karma, that cosmic reality, that Baha'u'lláh, to help us to understand the glories of the Son of Divine Knowledge and Understanding. Please pay attention that in this paragraph, he separates knowledge from understanding. This is why when Muhammad in Jum'ah verse 6 talks about knowledge, and then Baha'u'lláh later on, he says knowledge is light, knowledge is vague. When it is light is when all those qualifications which he said previously should be within it. Then you understand. Then you become the recipient of grace that is infinite. And then continue, please. And we have to go faster because I know time is running. Go.
Sure.
What happened?
Then will they be made worthy of the effulgent glories of the Son of Divine Knowledge and Understanding, and become the recipients of a grace that is infinite and unseen. Inasmuch as man can never hope to attain unto the knowledge of the All-Glorious, can never quaff from the stream of divine knowledge and wisdom, can never enter the abode of immortality, nor partake of the cup of divine nearness and favor, unless and until he ceases to regard the words and deeds of mortal men as the standard for the true understanding and recognition of God and his prophets.
Very good. I think that is very clear that unless you do as a researcher, and please pay attention, that doesn't mean only researching the faith, researching religion. If you are working at JPL, you need to have those qualifications. In anything that we research, we should have these qualities of avoiding idle talk, avoiding vain imagining, avoiding worldly affections. Why? Because otherwise our result will be tainted. This is why some researchers actually become biased, because based on what they want to achieve, they change the data. Please pay attention, the relevance of this passage is not about just choosing between Islam and Babism and Bahá'í Faith. When you actually want to do any research on anything, on anyone, if you want to know a girl or a boy that you want to know better and get married, this paragraph applies. Have you ever gone to the date and then say, read paragraph 1 and 2 of Íqán and then become and talk? That means your intention should be pure. You should avoid idle talk. You should avoid vain imagining and so forth. So the point that I'm making is, unless and until we look at this passage holistically, we cannot ever succeed in walking on the path of true research. I don't know how many minutes do we have.
It is 10 minutes to 9.
We want, how about I finish right here?
Okay.
I want to see if there are any questions before I go to the paragraphs remaining.
Okay, go ahead.
If there is no question, that's bad news. Nahid Khanam, any question? Mr. Ford, Australia.
Mr. Riazati, can you summarize what you did?
What is that?
Can you summarize for all tonight in 5 minutes? Tell us what you learned.
Well, that is extra $5. What do you mean summarize?
I put it in the stock market.
Everything that we said was a summary, which means simply it meant if you want to unravel the truth, whether scientific, whether religious, anything that you want to unravel, you have to have some qualifications of purity, of detachment, of non-being biased. Because he says, unless you do that, it is guaranteed that you fail. It has nothing to do with religion or non-religion. In fact, I see by Bahá'u'lláh says, "O ye people of the world." That means you, anything that you want to do. I want to buy stocks. How does this applies? Bahar Khanum, how does this apply when I want to buy a stock, when I want to choose a major, when I want to choose a wife, husband? Does this thing apply? If it doesn't apply, then this book is already outdated. Does it mean that when you buy a stock, because I know Mr. Sopani is a stockholder, I am buying the stock in order to get rich, have a bigger house, and I want to show Habib how lowly he is. So see, already he went and bought the stock, but his intention was no good. He was attached to the worldly. The same guy says, you know, I couldn't really go through education, but I have children, I have neighbors who need help. I want to have some stock and then sell it, and maybe I can help some needy people. Do you see? You name anything that you do. If you have a worldly attachment, what is worldly attachment? What is it for me? I don't care what is it for you. Some people even do not understand us is either my mind. He says, get away from this my mind business. If you consider the well-being of the whole, you are also being taken care of. But when you only concern yourself, that is worldly affection. That is minds from vain imagining. That is a vain imagining. That if you think, that if you try to cheat and to go forward, that is vain imagining. Because your well-being is dependent on the well-being of others. Your happiness is dependent on the happiness of others. Do you see? So you try to use this few exhortation and see in anything that you do from tomorrow morning. When you pay to the funds. What is your intention? Well, I want to pay to the Christian funds. Well, that's all. Baha'i funds, Islamic funds. You say no. Funds is a channel to help humanity. I may not be as an individual to do it. Therefore, as long as I have trustworthy channel that they do not use my funds in order to benefit themselves, why not? I want to help the people who are afflicted in coronavirus, the children, the youth, the elders. Do you see how these few pages can help you, few paragraphs? So that is what I meant. Next question, please.
We have another question, Ms. Nazanin Mazlumi. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. Yes, Doctor, I think I just missed that part when you said at the beginning of the chapter, heaven is what you can have and earth is what you already have.
Yeah. See,
Please correct me.
Australian, you cannot hear me, but you are my best friend because I have come to your home and you have been so generous in your hospitality. Heaven is that a station of ultimate perfection that you can reach. Only for the sake of clarity, I say the original. عرض قابلیات و سماع مقبولات. The heaven means that is most fitted, acceptable, and then earth means that which you are potent of, your potential. And in fact, revelation has one aim, individually and collectively, that each individual, because empowered, enabled to bring about those hidden potentials. Look at Lohe Maqsood. He says, consider man to be like a mine full of gems. So Bahá'u'lláh has only one mission, educator. He has come to educate, means to draw out those potential to reach to the heaven that is most fitted for our growth. Make sense? Very good. Next.
I think Mr. Golshani had a question from the previous session. Mr. Golshani?
Yes, thank you very much. My question was about symbolism that we discussed last time. And thank you very much for letting me to expand my question. Symbolism used, and if I may refer to Spinoza. Spinoza believes that simplicity will do the job. Actually, in his life, he practiced it. And in one of his books, I think it's Religion and State, he refers to vagueness of portions of orders of religions to have a purpose. And that purpose is to have an individual in a faith to have a free will of different interpretation. In any religion, we have two groups of people, either devout and religious people who just blindly accept orders, or the ones who question it. So I think this vagueness or symbolism in religions, in my feeble mind, is not reasonable, is not rational. So should we or should I accept interpretation of Spinoza? And just,
Well, as you can see, Mehrdad, you are actually referring to a man which I highly encourage those who want to understand the symbolism in Íqán to read his book. In fact, his major work is ethics, understanding ethics. And it is in that major work that he raises those issues. See, what is symbol really? And that is crucial to understanding Spinoza and Bahá'u'lláh. Symbol is a pointer. How do you define that pointer depends on your maturity and your expectation and all of those qualifications that Bahá'u'lláh mentioned. Depending of what do you expect, that symbol means that for you. Some people take things literally. I give you an example. Matthew chapter 24. A star shall fall. Until now, the people of the world are actually waiting for the stars to fall. Spinoza, Bahá'u'lláh, says that type of thinking just limits you from the universal meaning that creates Wahdatul Wujud, gives a new meaning to the existence as a whole. Bahá'u'lláh, it says, a star shall fall. Where are they going to fall? Do you really want stars to fall? Why we allow one star to fall one at a time? Then where are we going to go? Stars, even if they come close to Earth, you and I die, Mehrdad, because there is an essential relationship. So, Bahá'u'lláh very much through this book and other works seems to suggest symbols are actually pointers from the limited world to the unlimited domain of meanings. But each person, based on their maturity, they define those symbols. This is why Bahá'u'lláh in this book, when it comes to the word heaven, he gives several meanings. Please pay attention. Humanity is a dynamism. It is organic reality. And Bahá'u'lláh says symbolism is a means to bring that unknown reality proportional to and relative to human capacity, individual or collective, for them to appreciate the meaning. There is no problem, and Spinoza doesn't have any problem with that. What Spinoza has a problem, and it is a right problem, is when you, as a Jew, as a Christian, as a Muslim, as a Baha'i, you think that this symbol only means what this book says. That is the problem starts. But if, according to Abdul Baha Abbas, in some answer question, what is Adam, what is Eve? Because those are two symbols. And then Abdul Baha gives by Adam means this, by Eve means that, but at the end says, hey buddy, that is one meaning of that symbol. You go and think and you find other meanings of that symbol. Do you see that? This is why in the Bahá'í Faith, in order for the problems of the previous revelations not to repeat itself, it has been a distinction between authoritative interpretation of the symbol and individual interpretation of the symbol. Both of them are needed. You can define this symbol according to your understanding, your maturity, any way you want. But you cannot say that this meaning has to be accepted by everybody in the world. And that was the problem of Spinoza with the Jewish clergies. This is why the Jewish clergies, they told him, we just give you some money, you shut up and you go and sit down. He said, oh, really? So he went and sat down in his home, and then he started writing those books. So Bahá'u'lláh, to me, is very merciful. He says, no, I do not want to say this is the only meaning. I want to allow you to be diversified, but remember, your diversity has to be at the service of that global purpose of unity that I have. Whatever you want to define that, start define it. But do not let that definition to bar you from a further understanding. Make sense? Okay. Next question.
I have a question for you, Mr. Riazati. You did mention the fact that Shoghi Effendi has called this faith the Bahá'í Faith as opposed to Bahá'í religion. Is there any difference between religion and faith? Is it more inclusive? Why is it that Shoghi Effendi decided to use that term?
Now you are asking difficult question. But see, what does religion mean really? Religion, again, originally means religio, means to reunite. How many minutes do we have, Mr.?
We have 20 minutes, 25 minutes. Go ahead.
25 minutes. So we do just question and answer for now. See, religion or religious system is a means. You say that I believe in Islam as a religion, right? Mm-hmm. There is a religion of Islam and there is the faith of Islam. What is Islam really? Islam has two meanings. One is a universal meaning. This is why it says changeless faith. I quote Muhammad. He says, Moses was not a Jew, he was Muslim. Christ was not a Christian, he was Muslim. Abraham was a Muslim. And then he said, whosoever accepts any religion other than Islam, it is not acceptable from him. That is the passage that some of the religious leaders in Iran use in order to persecute Bahá'í. Now, you ask yourself, within those contexts of those verses, does Muhammad refer to Islam as a universal faith? Or he's talking about his own specific religion? The answer is very obvious. Islam means submission to the will of God. Now, this submission to the will of God at each stage has an instrument. Moses had an instrument, but the aim was submission to the will of God. This is why, please, I gave you that example to see that the root of this thinking, philosophical thinking, is in the previous dispensations also, to distinguish between an instrument of a religion from the purpose of religion, which is a universal faith. What is faith? That which creates hope. What is faith? That which creates certitude. Religion is an instrument. This is why religion can become the cause of evil if it is abused. What does evil mean? It means faith is out of the picture. Certitude is out of the picture. See, I'm using exactly the phrases that Baha'u'lláh used. This is why we say, are the Baha'is Muslims? I know some of you get mad. No, we have nothing to do with Islam. Well, I understand. Don't kill me. But you are Muslim. Because Islam means submission to the will of God. It is like you can say all the previous religion potentially was Bahá'í Faith. But it was going through the process of evolution to do not consider the means and vehicle, rather concern yourself with the ultimate objective, which is faith. So when Shoghi Effendi, involved of Baha'u'lláh, last letter, he tries to separate this thing. He wants to say, don't just look at the Bahá'í Faith like another organized religion which is separated from the universal reality. He considers Bahá'í Faith to be essentially scientific. It is very interesting. Bahá'í Faith, although it is faith, but it has science in it. Do you see? He did not want, I am paraphrasing his own words. He says, I do not want them to think it is like a religion and has a branch and has an organization. He says, no, it has all those, but those do not make the Bahá'í Faith. Those are only channels that the Bahá'í Faith's potential be manifest. And he looks at the faith to be that which benefits the humanity as a whole. This is why ultimately Bahá'í Faith doesn't say this person is a Bahá'í, that person is not a Bahá'í. Because again, I quote Shoghi Effendi referring to Abdul Baha. Abdul Baha, when he says, what is a Bahá'í? He says, Bahá'í simply means the one who wants to acquire human perfection. So when you acquire human perfection, Bahá'í yani jame jami kamalat insani. See, he separated now the vehicle from the ultimate goal of a religion. So religion is a vehicle. Ultimately, religion is subject to change. But we want this subject to change to get us to the changeless phenomena, which Baha'u'lláh calls it changeless faith of God. And then within that context, you understand the religion to mean religio, means to reunite. So this is why if religion cannot help you to unite with yourself and others, then it is an unworthy instrument.
Thank you for your answer. Any other questions? If not, you can just go on, and if you have anything in mind, just go ahead.
George, how many more minutes do we have? You mean there is no question?
About 15 minutes left.
Sorry,
No.
Farshad, do we have access to the recording?
The recordings, yes, we have been doing the recordings. We need to edit it, clean it up, and we need to make it available. So yes, it has been recorded, and hopefully it's just a matter of time before we release it to everybody.
Very
Okay.
good, very good.
And then you
question?
collect our email address later on to send it to us, or how do you?
If you did not receive the announcement directly from Baha'i Announce, you can privately send your email through chat to me.
Okay.
And from that chat session, I pick up any new emails and I add it to the list.
Sure. Thank you.
So Sharon, no question?
Yes, I have a question.
Yes.
There are many symbolism all over. What is the purpose behind this?
Well, the purpose, see, you are sitting on a chair. Chair is a symbol. You
Well,
are walking, it's a symbol. Let's see, this is one of the main concepts of Íqán, whether you believe it or not, Sharon John, is how the symbols actually are the pointers to point you to reality. Now, according to Muhammad, everything is a pointer if you catch it. This is why he says the sign of God or reality is everywhere. And in fact, when Rumi says, everywhere that I turn, I see the face of God. But nothing is God. Nothing is that reality. Everything is just a symbol. Symbol, it is like, I give you an example, Sharon John. You look at Bahá'u'lláh. Is Bahá'u'lláh reality or a symbol? You look at Mirza Hussain Ali. Is Mirza Hussain Ali a reality or a symbol? You go to Bahji. Is Bahji a reality or a symbol? Now I answer it from Bab in Persian Bayan and also in Panshan. He says, the reason that you go and visit the shrine is not because of the shrine, you dummy Habib. It's because that shrine is pointing to something else. But because the people are limited in their vision, we need symbols. So you go to shrine, you say, I give you an example, whether you're Muslim, you're a Baha'i, it doesn't matter. You go, say, to Shiraz. You see that house, very humble house. You go from Australia to Shiraz to see that house. Is not that house. That house points to Ali Muhammad. But is Ali Muhammad really is the aim? Well, in relation to the house, Ali Muhammad is the aim. But Ali Muhammad also is a symbol. Muhammad is a symbol. Mirza Hussain Ali is a symbol. To who? Ali Muhammad, Bob, is pointing to God. What does God points to then? That is what Spinoza and other people were asking. If everything is a symbol, then what is God pointing? Because as you know, as Freud, as Jung especially, they said God is a symbol, my friend. Is nothing else. Don't fight over it. It's an archetype. It's a symbol. It is like mother archetype. You say Mother Earth. Sharon, when you say Mother Earth, you go and see whether Earth is female or male.
Oh,
no, it is a symbol because you consider mother to have a womb from that womb the child comes, right? So that womb was a symbol. This is why they called it man, woman. What does woman meant? Originally, they said, if you are a Jew, because I know, Shahram, you are a very good Jew, woman was interpreted as was taken out of man. That was very male chauvinist. But womb, the same word, woman, some people said no. It means womb man, means a man that has a womb. See, it is a symbol, the same symbol. The same symbol gave to new meaning. So now what am I saying is, if you go to the house of the Bab, points to the Bab, you go to Bab, points to his writings points to his station points to God, God points to unity of humankind. So as you saw, everything was a symbol. And Mehrdad, that means the man cannot live without symbol. This is why every man has a symbol. And in fact, the people fight not over the symbol. They fight over the subjective meaning that are cultural, mostly, of that symbol. Make sense? I give you an example, and the last example. You believe in dowry, right? If you got married, you have to pay something to this woman, right? Is it really dowry is a symbol? If you go to India, if you want to get married, especially if you are a man, you go to India. In India, who has to pay the dowry? Woman.
Oh, so let's go there then.
So go there, but it's too late for you. But look at it. Why? Because in India, in fact, the man determines how much money he wants from that woman, and that woman has to pay, or the family has to pay. This is why you see so many women burned to death. This is why if a man in a household has a lot of daughters, that is a curse of God for them. Because with every daughter you have to pay. See, that is symbol. Now you suddenly come to Iran. Completely the symbol has reversal meaning. Who has to pay? The man has to pay. How much? Well, depends. If the girl thinks she is very beautiful, then you pay for the beauty, right? And then you become sorry because beauty is perishable anyway. And the beauty is in the eyes of beholder. See, all of these things are symbol. Then suddenly Bahá'u'lláh comes. Bab comes. Bab is dealing with this symbol analysis of this symbol. Dowry, should we pay it or shouldn't we pay it? He keeps the symbol. He gets rid of the abuse of that symbol. What was the abuse? One, the limit. How much the people have to pay? Well, he actually created a limit that everybody can afford, right? And even if you didn't have it, he said, those people who govern the society have to help these people to pay it. So the limit went away. Everybody was happy. But then they asked Bob, why should man pay to woman? Are you male chauvinist? You mean the women are low? And you are talking about 18th century, 19th century, women want to be the lord of the universe, right? And then Bob says, no, this is again is a symbol. Symbol of what? That everybody has some responsibility. the primary responsibility of the mother is the education of the children. The primary responsibility of the husband is to provide the means. But that doesn't mean only, do not say to your wife, bring me children, and don't tell your husband, I want to sit home and watch movie, go and bring money. Bob says, nobody. You corrupted the symbols. So as you can see, our life is symbolic phenomena. How do we define that symbols to benefit everyone, and its meaning becomes universal? That symbol has a value. Otherwise, is nothing but idle talk. Make sense?
Yes, but another question. Now,
Yes.
I read Iran. What conditions should I comply with, not to mistake the real meaning or real meanings of each symbol?
See, that's a very good question. Baha'u'lláh has an easy way to deal with this. Baha'u'lláh is our friend, you know that? Many people try to make an idol of him. In my humble opinion, Baha'u'lláh has to be your best friend. Baha'u'lláh has to live in your heart. Baha'u'lláh has to be closer to you than your own vein. With Baha'u'lláh, you live day in, day out. With Baha'u'lláh, you live moment to moment. This is why Baha'u'lláh doesn't mean Mirza Hussain Ali. Baha'u'lláh doesn't live in Holy Land. Baha'u'lláh lives in every land. Baha'u'lláh lives in every heart. Do you see how the symbol of Baha'u'lláh also changed now? Now, some people get attached to Mirza Hussain Ali. They do not understand that Mirza Hussain Ali actually is a symbol to Baha'u'lláh himself. This is why Baha'u'lláh says, please, when you come to me, don't kiss my hand. Please do not bend. We all have to bend before God. What is God? Is that universal force. Do you see that? So as you can see, when you read Iqan, you ask yourself, how does this interpretation or my understanding of this passage helps me to become more united, more noble? How can it help me to be a better carpenter, better engineer, to become upfront with my fellow human being? Baha'u'lláh says, that is a perfect interpretation of my writings. Why? Shoghi Effendi explains. The beginning, the middle, the end of everything that Baha'u'lláh has revealed is to create unity of humankind. So in every symbol that we read, in every meeting that we go, in every institution that we have, we are asking, how does that serve humanity as a whole? It's not about me, it's not about the Baha'is, it's about the people of the world as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you. We have another question, Mr. Goshani. Go ahead.
Thanks again. Dr. Riazati, you just mentioned that Baha'i Faith submits to science. Can you be more clear about that? Science, what do you mean by science?
Beautiful. I think that was the question of Naid Khanum. Naid Khanum is very quiet. I don't know.
That's right. I'm so glad he asked that question.
Okay. See, one of the biggest question or the claim we make is harmony of religion and science, right? And then you say, and because we are just saying it and believing it ourselves and we do not want anybody to ask any question, we just run away. But what does it mean by harmony of religion and science? And what does Shoghi Effendi mean when he says Baha'i Faith is scientific in nature? what does science mean? Do you remember last time I talked about the martyrdom of the Bab? Do you actually can explain the martyrdom of the Bab scientifically? Why Shoghi Effendi says, don't use it, my friend, whenever you talk about the proof of the Bab and Babism, do not try to impress the person by that he was martyred the second time. It is as low influence as you say Jesus is the Son of God. When it comes to them, when we do not understand it, based on all limited understanding of science, we say that is symbolism. But when it comes to the Bab, it wasn't symbolism, it was real. This young man, the first time, in a very casual way of stating it, he was alive after it. The second time, he ascended. So how does science really comes in? What does really Baha'u'lláh means by harmony of religion and science? Does it mean anything religion says science has to prove it? Or vice versa? If this is your understanding of the science, then everything is out of order. Because you cannot prove the life after death by science. You can describe it as a different psychological realms, but that is not the next world. When Baha'u'lláh says that in order to understand the next world, you have to have some mechanic to understand it, but we do not have anything to understand the next world, because Baha'u'lláh says whatever you say of the next world, you have to say it in a terminology of this world, Loh Abdul Wahab. So where is science really? And what does harmony of religion and science means really? And what was the purpose of these principles really? See how many questions I asked? First, why this question or this principle came into the Baha'i doctrine? Second, what does it mean? Third, does it really mean what we understand casually? My humble investigation shows that the reason that this doctrine even made it into the Baha'i Faith was because before Baha'u'lláh and Bab, there was always a clash between the scientist community and religious community that led to Renaissance. As you can very well remember, everybody actually in a dark ages, whatever church said, that goes. Even if the science proves it otherwise. Copernicus came, Kepler came, Galileo came. They said, hey, buddy, the earth is not the center. Sun is the center. Everybody put them to banishment. That was one part of the reality. So what they did was, they told to the Pope, please, for God's sake, just go there and read your prayers. Do not interfere in the science. Now, other side of the story is what we see right now. Everybody says, use your mind, use your science. The people have to be intelligent. So there are two camps. So Baha'u'lláh and Abdul Baha, in my humble opinion, recognized. And they said, they have to go together as a balancing factor. Balancing factor means if religion starts to be dogmatic, science starts asking questions to undermine it. And if the science wants to only concentrate on the limited understanding of the events of the universe, religion wants to say there are higher reality than only what is visible. So then you take these and go to the writings of Abdul Baha. He, over time, gives a new meaning to that doctrine. He says by harmony of the religion with mind and science, تطابق علم و عقل و دین. He says by religion, I mean a true religion. By science, I mean a true science. By mind, I mean the universal mind, عقل کل. Then they ask him, my friend, but in reality, all of those three are one. So what are you talking about? And Abdul Baha, in various talks, he says, I want to say that if something happens in the world that science cannot explain, humanity should not deny the reality of it. Rather than denying it, try to unravel it. Do you see how they become the balancing factor? So that is my understanding about that question. Nait Khanum, don't ask difficult questions. So how many more minutes, Mr.?
We're pretty much done if there are no other questions. Are there any other questions? I don't see any.
Rajan, you didn't say anything. What happened?
Who?
May I elaborate something, if I may? Sorry about that. This is the last one, I promise you. Science does not submit to divinity of prophets.
Exactly.
And again, I don't want to go back to Spinoza because he does not accept the divinity of Christ or others.
Yes.
So how does Bahá'í Faith explains that?
See,
do we?
I got
sorry.
See again, Mirza John, you have to ask Bahá'u'lláh, what does divinity mean? Because I can prove to you when it comes to that section on divinity that Spinoza had problem with how the people have defining divinity. Is it really divinity means this is one level, and that is another level, and that is a third level? And then Jesus really is at some level a man, some level a God, some level is a son of God? See, Spinoza had a problem with this thing. He said, what is this? Now you go to Bahá'u'lláh. Bahá'u'lláh says there is only one realm. Everything is divine, but nothing is divine. Please pay attention. Everything is holy, means holistic, but nothing by itself is holy, because each one is an element of the whole. Please pay attention. Holy, if you ask the average person, what does holy mean? He says, my book is holy, my house is holy, my manifestation is holy. Spinoza had a problem with that. He said, Habibullah, you are very dumb because you don't understand. Holy means whole. How can something to be a whole? Everything is an element or a part of the whole. But as long as the part has the attributes of the whole, is a part of holiness, because that part is a symbol. You see that? So science, if the science uses the standard that are limited, for sure they miss the whole, W-H-O-L-E. If they only say, exists because I see it, Baha'u'lláh says, no, reality is not what you see, is not what you don't see. In fact, he says, one is apparent, one is hidden. That hidden reality actually gives energy to the apparent reality. I actually want to offer you a book by Bertrand Russell, The Reality and Appearance. What is appearance? What is real? Baha'u'lláh can be best understood by some of these philosophical work. Another work that very much helps is Process and Reality by Alfred North Whitehead. That Whitehead proves the religion, the reason that it goes on darkness is because they think they are the reality, or the religion is the reality, or the science is the reality, while the science and religion, according to Abdul Baha, are two wings of the same bird. One without another, it cannot fly. And that is what it means by harmony of religion and science. It means always catch yourself. If you don't understand it, don't deny it. But also it tells the religious guy, if you cannot define it, do not insist it. Not everything that the man knows can be disclosed. Not everything which is disclosed is timely. Not everything which is revealed timely, everybody can understand it. You see that, Mirza John? And have a good evening.
May I offer a perspective on Merdad's question about Spinoza?
Sure.
Spinoza, again, I'm not too familiar with him, but I would assume that he was during the time of Newtonian physics. But I want to, for those that are interested, there's a PhD in quantum physics. Baha'u'llah's revelation came in the 1800s, and there's a PhD in quantum physics from Harvard University, Dr. Hagelin, John Hagelin. And this is what Dr. John Hagelin says. He says, the progress in our scientific understanding of the universe through physics over the last 25 years has been exploring deeper levels of natural law, from the macroscopic to the microscopic, from the molecular to the atomic, to the nuclear to the subnuclear levels of how nature functions. What we have discovered at the core basis of the universe, at the foundation of the universe, we have found a single one. We have found a single universal field of intelligence, a field of intelligence which unites. That's a big word for Baha'is. A field of intelligence which unites gravity with electromagnetism, light with radioactivity, so that all the forces of nature and all the so-called particles of nature, names, quarks, leptons, protons, neutrons, are now understood scientifically to be one. They are all different ripples of a single ocean of existence. And Dr. John Hagelin, and again, we can go into Erwin Schrödinger, who was in the early 1900s. He says quantum physics reveals a basic oneness of the universe. Max Planck, who was a German physicist, he says, we must assume there's a conscious, intelligent mind behind the origination of all matter. So I just want to share that and bring that up, that Spinoza probably was, again, around the time of Newtonian physics, but over the last 100 years, PhDs, they're not Baha'is, I don't even know if they're religious, but John Hagelin is who I'd also suggest folks look into, because Dr. Hagelin says, again, look right here, he says, we call this single field of intelligence consciousness. Planets, people, trees, animals, we are all waves of vibration in this underlying unified field. We are all united at our core. And this, for Baha'is on this call, it's very fascinating, because Baha'i children grew up learning the song, we are all waves of one sea. We learned, again, Baha'u'lláh here says, enter the ocean of the unity of God. And Dr. Hagelin, the PhD from Harvard, he says, we are all different ripples on a single ocean of existence. Now, Dr. Hagelin said this about 100 years after Baha'u'lláh used these words, these symbols to describe reality. So I would just invite folks to look at science and religion through the lens of quantum physics. There's some really neat PhDs and doctors studying quantum physics, which gives a different understanding, a deeper understanding of harmony of science and religion. So that's just food for thought.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you.